Okay, so we are starting the heads-up portion of the tournament. EyesofShiva has 25 big blinds, and Steph has 77 big blinds. So Steph has a 3-1 chip lead, but we're still fairly deep, so there's no reason to panic. There's still an opportunity with one double up to pull to about even. Before I look at the heads-up match, this is I'll give a quick scouting report on how I would play in this seat versus an opponent like this, who in a full ring game sees 59% of the flops but does not raise a lot. Don't bluff them. In most heads-up matches, you are going to be fighting for all the small pots. You're going to be doing a lot of bluffing when you sense weakness, or when you're able to put your opponent on a weak hand range. And any regular opponent will give up a lot of pots to your small bets. An opponent like this will probably just call, hoping that something like queen high or king high is good. Unable to fold, third, fourth, or even fifth pair. Hoping to just get the showdown and not doing any work to put you on a hand. So you can't really do a lot of bluffing, a lot of representing of hands. Instead, you should be doing a lot of value betting, and that doesn't only mean putting in big bets when you have a big hand, hoping that he calls you. That's part of the strategy, but the other part is doing a lot of thin value betting, and that basically means instead of checking down what would normally be marginal hands, let's say top pair with a weak kicker, middle pair, ace high even. Don't be afraid to get in there and bet those hands and hope that your opponent, who's calling you weak, who's calling you very light, will have a second best hand. So you have to get value from any hands that have value, and don't be afraid to bet them, and try not to get the cheap showdowns against a player like this. Bet your hands, don't bluff. Okay, so he limps. Give it a nice raise, probably a bit too big. I don't think you need to go more than 3x in spots like these. You're just asking for trouble because he's going to call with a lot of hands, and then you're going to be playing a bloated pot out of position. And if you don't hit, it's going to be tough to play against a player who's never folding. The raise is good, the size, as probably the theme of this video, is a bit too much. King Jack in the big blind. Again, I think a raise is good here. Again, same size. Yep, now we're playing out of position in a bloated pot. On the paired board, I like the bet. It's harder to hit a pair or anything really. When the board pairs, he may call you down with a straight draw, but otherwise, yep, take a nice c-bet, win the pot. Alright, again, the raise size is way too big. 4x in a heads-up match is quite unnecessary. I generally tend to min-raise with my entire range in heads-up matches, even against a player who is going to call with a wide range. I don't like to bloat the pot too much in heads-up matches and hope to outplay the player post-flop when there's more information. You're just asking him to fold hands that are worse than yours and only give you action with hands that are better than yours. If you want to make it an oversized raise, don't go any more than 3x. Seven deuce. Yeah, see, against a player like this who's not very aggressive, I would not necessarily go to war with a middle pair deuce kicker. He's going to bet again here, I assume. Yeah, and now you gotta go away. If you were going to call the min raise from the button, why not just make the raise yourself? That way you get the aggression initiative, and you can play better post flop. Now he's gonna lead out with pretty much any hand, and unless you hit pair or some kind of flush draw, you are going to have to fold. You get your flush draw. Against a player like this, he's leading out for 3/4 pot. I'm just going to see what you do before I go on. Yeah, that's what I thought you'd do. I think taking an aggressive line there is probably better. With the flush draw heads up. Although now I'm rethinking it because he bet out so much on the flop. You probably don't have a lot of fold equity if you go over the top. I think raising is the best. I think folding might be okay considering there's no fold equity. But calling after you bet so much on the flop, although you do have position, so actually that might be the best spot. Because if you were out of position, I wouldn't like calling here because you have the button. I think calling is probably the best idea here. See, now I think you either have to shove or fold. Yeah, you can't call there. You're committing too many chips, hoping to hit your flush draw. Now you gotta check fold. Oh, I didn't see that option coming. Yeah, he folds. I see this move a lot. Check call, shove river when the draw misses, and I don't like it because it's kind of obvious. If I had, well, I certainly wouldn't fold a queen. I wouldn't fold a 10. I wouldn't fold pocket 9s or 8s or 7s or 6s, I think, in this, given the line you took, because it's just such a clear misdraw to me. If you had the queen, you're not, shoving for almost a pot-sized bet. You're actually quite lucky that he didn't have anything, or somehow made a crazy read and was wrong and decided to fold anyway. But that line, check call with the draw, and then shove the river when the draw misses is quite obvious. When I see it happen, when I see opponents use that line against me, and I just love calling them and having them show me ace high or of the busted draw, which is what you had. You won the pot, but I don't think you played the optimum line. If you're looking ahead and deciding, well, if I miss my draw, I'm shoving the river anyway, why not shove before? So at least you have the draw to hit. After the river, there's no more draw, so you have no backup plan in case he calls. Lead out here. Yep. Too big again, but at least you led. You don't have to bet full pot in any situation. Ace 2. You gotta raise your aces, heads up. Yeah, I assumed there would be a call there. You are not beating anything, and you set it up so that he bet, 1/6 of the pot on the river, and you had to fold after calling 3 streets. Sorry, 2 streets. Yes, when you made it 2,000, that was too big. 1,000 is too small because he's not folding anything. I don't mind 1,500. Actually, 1,500 when you're out of position is probably optimal. But I do like the raise. I do like the idea of raising, just make it a bit bigger. Bet out. Now he calls. Now you pretty much are done with the hand. He leads it for pot, and you've got to fold. You can raise the queen 10, just like with the king 6 before. I should anticipate this hand might go quite similar to the king 6, where you called with your draw. Again, call with the draw. Although not yet. Well, I was going to say you had showdown value with the queen, so I like this a bit better, but now you've actually hit your straight, so what are you going to do? Oh, so now he leads out for full pot. Given the bet sizing and the size of your stack behind, you can't flat call here. There's so much in the middle. You are facing a 2.5 to 1 chip deficit. He's not potting with ace 10 here. He's trying to get you off 2 pair. He's trying to get you off, a missed flush draw. He's trying to get you off a king. Yeah, you gotta shove there. Well, he would have called you, but the only hand that's beating you is ace 10, and the way he played it, I don't think he had, the one hand that beat you there. You got to get your money in there. You can't play conservatively like that. That's one of those spots where you didn't have the absolute nuts, but you had a very strong hand given the board and the line he took. So you have to make him pay. When he's betting, he could be betting a whole bunch of 2-pair combos there, king jack, king queen, king 7 even, So get you straight in there, push your chips in the middle, and hope he calls you with something they beat. I don't know why you're calling with 6 deuce here. Yeah, that was every street of that hand was absolutely bad. Fold pre-flop, even though it was a min raise, and you're getting good odds. Fold pre-flop against a player who's passive, especially pre-flop. You got to fold a 6 high. On the flop, if you're going to call his bet, why not take a lead with bottom pair and see what happens? On the turn, when you make your flush draw to go along with your pair, why not raise a bit, put some pressure on him instead of check calling? And then, well, the river was probably the best played street in my opinion. Check folding to a pot size bet. 5-7. Now this is more reasonable than the 6 deuce because there's more straight draws you can make. So I don't mind the call there. Now the money is going in. If the money goes in on the flop or on the river, I don't care, but the money better be going in here. Yes, here comes the check shove. The check shove is check shove, or at least check min raise or something. Get the money in. There you go. Nice. Min raise with the king 5, I hope. Nope, you just call. Again with the oversized pot size bet. I'd like to see raise more pre-flop with hands as marginal as king 5. This heads up. It's not a full ring. It's not even 6 max. It's heads up. A king high is a perfectly good hand to raise with in a heads up situation. Yeah, I suppose if you're calling with 6 deuce, you're also calling with 7-6. Like the 7-6 a bit better, plays better than 6 deuce. And of course you get, gosh, flopping all the draws, huh? I'd like to see a raise here. No. I think this min bet line he's been utilizing is fairly weak. He's trying to get you off your hand as cheaply as possible. He's button clicking. He's not thinking about what size he should be betting. He's just like, I'm gonna bet something, and he's gonna bet as minimal as possible. That feels like weakness to me. So I would put in a raise here at some point. And now you're stuck with 7 high, and again you lead when you miss your draw, and he folds. So maybe you have a read that I don't, but I don't think that's the optimal way to play your hand. If you're going to take this line, why not put the raise in a bit sooner so that you have a backup? And by backup, I mean you actually hit your draw and you aren't hoping that he folds. That's the only way you win the hand, is if he folds. If you bet early in the hand, you can hope he folds. That's one way to win. Or if he calls, maybe you hit your draw. So always give yourself more chances to win the hand by folding or by actually hitting your hand. Okay. With the kings, I think because you did it before, I don't mind making that bet size here. If you'd been in a situation like this, if you'd always been making it 2,000 or 4x, and all of a sudden you made it a min raise, then I wouldn't like that. But because you've been, oscillating between 4x and min raising in this spot, I don't mind just making the min raise here, boosting the size of the pot just a little bit, and hoping, expecting him to call, quite frankly, which he does. Of course, the ace high flop, but I don't think you can put him on ace since he limp called pre-flop. I think he would have raised all his aces, so we can safely bet. That's a tricky card. I think that the betting the same on the turn as you did on the flop screams weakness. I don't know that we're beat quite yet, but I would like it if you bet a bit more, because he's going to jump on your weakness and do that. That's a decent play by him if it works, or if he made the same read that I made. I'm giving my credit for making a read when I can see your whole cards. So, way to go, me. But if he's making that read that your turn bet is weak, and he's putting a nice big raise to try to get you off your hand, great. If he actually hit his flush, well, then he's making too big a bet, because he's blowing you off your hand, which you have to fold at this point. Actually, I'm quite impressed with that laydown. I don't think he had the flush. I think he... You know what? I said at the beginning of this that I wouldn't try to get into the minds of the opponents, and a player this erratic, I'm loath to do that even more so. So, nice fold. We'll go on to the next hand. King 8, I'd like to see you raise that. Bet again. Yep, got a bit more on the turn. Here's a good spot where you can make a thin value bet on the river. You can't be afraid that he has you out kicked or he got there with his flush draw. I hope you make a nice bet and you check behind. Yeah, I think against this player, he would have called you down with. He would have called your river bet with what turns out to be third pair 3 kicker, which is why you have to make those thin value bets on the river to get more chips out of him when you have the best hand. Checking the river, and I do this a lot too. It's tough. It's a tough move to pull, but I think when you've recognized the kind of opponent you have, it's the best way to get more chips, and not just hope that you have the best hand. Pocket threes. I expect you to make it 2,000 here. You do. That's way too much. Any calls? Yep. At least you took a nice strong stab at the flop, and had to fold to the min raise, obviously. Queen Jack, you got to raise that one. Again, oversized c-bet. Nice. Okay, so same as the kings, you're min raising with the aces. Although in that situation you were in the big blind. Here, you're on the button. You're inviting him to call. That's too big. Since you've been doing a lot of weak leads, betting on the flop the same as you raised pre-flop, this oversized bet is, you're saying to him, well, only call me if you have a monster that can call a pot-sized bet. Although I suppose a player like this is going to call you with his flush draw, so maybe that is a good size to get value out of his flush draws. He does call. Bet again. And he folds. 4 on the turn. When he called the flop bet, I think you can do a bit better job of milking him on the turn. Don't go for the 2/3 size pot bet. Maybe go half or a bit less. But at least you bet strong like that. Again, we get a nice little flop. Did he raise pre-flop? No, he just called. Check. Yeah, I don't... I think I like a lead better. Although he has been leading the flop when he limped pre-flop, so maybe the check... as long as you were going to check call and not check raise, the check on the flop was the best line, but then you bet out too much on the turn. Full size pot again. Watch those full size pot bets. Those, I don't think there's any situation where they are good. Okay, here's another situation where we have a thin value bet to make. Yeah, and you check it through. Yeah, see, there's another situation where you could have at least got a turn bet in there. There were so many draws. You didn't necessarily have to have the flush draw. You didn't necessarily have to have the 5. A player like this could, as we see, he's calling you down pretty late. Any pair will do. So at least on the turn, or maybe the river, put a bet in. Get some more value from somebody who's going to call you with a marginal hand. Alright, we check. Lead out with 10. He raises. I think this board is so draw heavy that he could be raising you with a whole bunch of draws. You could have the 6. You know, he might have 2 pair, he might have 10 with a better kicker, but I don't think you could fold for that price just yet. You call. Now I think it's a clear fold. I mean, 7-8 got there. His 10 with a better kicker is still winning. Yeah, you gotta fold there. 5-7, you can come in for a raise here. I think you gotta be raising a lot more frequently pre-flop. Not a lot more in size, but a lot more frequently. Again, too big with your bluff. Here, I expect you to raise to 2,000. Oh, you can't check that flop. You raise pre-flop, you have to continue with the aggression, continue with the initiative, and lead out. If you're not going to, if you feel like your hand is too weak to bet, or if you feel like your hand is weak, then that's the spot where you make a smaller bet size, say 30 to 40% of the pot. You can't check and let him, you know, bomb away, and you're forced to fold. You have to at least fight for the pots after you've raised pre-flop. Now, this is the one reason you may not is this is a fairly connected board. There's a flush draw, there's a couple straight draws, but I think in a heads-up situation you can't be looking for boogeymen. You have to make your opponent feel like you have the monster around the corner. I'm not sure if that's a mixed metaphor or not, but we'll go with it. Continue the aggression and try to pick up the pot that you've once you've raised pre-flop. 3-6, that's a muck pre-flop. You don't need to play hands as garbage as 3-6. You don't have to play every hand. I mean, it worked out this time, but you know, some hands are just garbage enough that you can fold. For example, I'm not sure why you're leading out this flop when you didn't lead out against a similarly connected board after you raised pre-flop. Now where are you? Yeah. Bet your, there you go. I wouldn't mind a second bet. Well, hello. Okay, so this is a great little move. You've obviously picked up on his tendencies. He loves to float, you know, flop or turn, and then when he senses weakness in you, he puts out a little bet, hoping to pick up the pot, and you make a raise. I guess the sizing is right, considering he bet 1/6 of the pot, and you're giving him 3-to-1 odds, that's a fairly good size. You're not risking too much. You're making it look strong, and he has to fold. So that was a nice play. That was a nice play, and more importantly, a nice read, and even more importantly, following through on the history you have with your opponent. You're watching his patterns, and you noticed things that he's been doing frequently, and you picked up on those patterns and exploited them. So that was a good hand. Probably my favorite hand of the video so far. Yeah, Queen 5. Dump it pre. When he raises, dump it there. Okay, we have nefarious designs here. Do you raise here? No. See, you had that read from the previous hand of him betting small into large size pots, and then you put in a little raise because you sensed weakness, and you got the job done, and you didn't follow through with it here. If you picked up that read, exploit it until he makes the adjustment and comes back at you. I saw you were heading towards that by calling him on the flop and on the turn. Well, on the flop with nothing, with position. When you do that, you have to at least on the turn put in a raise, or on the river put in a raise if you're going to call the flop with queen high no draw.